Hello one and all! This is my review of Ascendance Bookworm Part 5, Volume 6, and I've got to say, overall this volume felt very busy, very hectic, as Myne was rushing from scene to scene trying to check everything off her list, because let's not forget, this girl is basically running the duchy. She's the main supplier of mana, she's in charge of the temple, she's in charge of religious ceremony, she's in charge of the printing industry, she's in charge of the Gutenbergs, she's in charge of the orphanage. Holy mother of God above, that is a lot. That is seriously, seriously a lot. And let's not forget, good old Prince Siggy wanted to give her basically no time at all to do the handover. God dang above, man, you are dumb. You are seriously, seriously dumb. In fact, one of my favorite moments in the entire volume is when Sylvester's in a meeting with Siggy, he's looking at him, he's like, okay, clearly he's playing dumb. Clearly there's no way this prince, the crown prince, the next king of our country, is actually as dumb as he seems. But yeah, he's a moron. He is a complete and absolute moron. But anyway though, I would say though the biggest surprise for me this volume is Wilfried. Seriously, we got this opening chapter, and I went into this fully and completely expecting Wilfried to explode, like right then and there, just start screaming, crying, raging, storming off, and then eventually somehow finding his way to Arnsbach, finding his way to Detland and Georgine, working for them, spilling the secrets that Myne has to them, and essentially being like one of the big final bads of the series, maybe with the redemption arc as he realizes, oh, yeah, maybe I should have done this, but no. I mean, Wilfried is surprisingly quiet and patient for the first half of the meeting. He's like, I see, I understand. I mean, you can, like, see that he's raging underneath, but he's keeping it cool, keeping it calm. And only after everyone else leaves, and it's just him, his father, and Myne, that he starts screaming, what the freak? Seriously, what the freak? And the crazy thing is he's not even mad for why I thought he was mad. I assumed he's like, oh my god, I've lost my chance to be Archduke. This is awful. But no, turns out Wilfried already fully gave up on being Archduke. He already said to his dad, listen, Dad, I'm done. I can't live a life being compared to mine. So I'm just going to step back and let her become the next Archduke. At which point Sylvester had a very tough situation on his hand, both because, you know, he wants one of his kids to become Archduke to show that Florentia is not a failure of a mother, but also because it's like, yeah, dude, Myne is a commoner, and she's obsessed with books, and I can only tell you that second thing, and I can say for certain that if she becomes the Archduke of Ehrenfest, things are probably going to go very, very badly. Holy mother of God above. But the crazy thing about this whole scene is the fact that as he's raging, as he's crying, as he's just so overwhelmingly emotional, Sylvester basically turns to him and says, okay, what do you want to do? He asks him what it is he wants to do. He gives him options. You can marry out of the duchy. You can become an Archduke and support Charlotte. You can still try to become the next Archduke since Myne's not going to be here. There's less competition. You can become a Gabe. We really need some freaking Gabes. Or you go and try to become the Knight Commander like Ferdinand and Bonifacius. And I didn't actually know Ferdinand was Knight Commander, but either way, he gives him options. He gives him a choice. Probably for the first time in his entire life, he gives Wilfried a choice. What is it you want to do? And honestly, I'm not actually sure if Wilfried ever really wanted to become the Archduke. It's like, no, you're told you need to become the Archduke, and he tried to, live up to that title, but at no point was he ever really like, when I become Archduke, these will be my policies, this is what I'll change. I mean, the most he actually said was, when talking to great-grandfather Justking, he said, I'm going to make things better, I'm going to fix this, but even then, it's clear he didn't, fully understand the situation. It's clear he didn't fully understand how the Justgangs felt about Veronica, as he assumed, oh, after I made that deal, the entire Justgang faction is going to be on my side, and they very, very much weren't. Seriously, they hated him. They absolutely hated him. Doesn't help that, Bartold was, pitting them against one another, but that's a topic for a bit later in the video. But anyway, though, back to what I was saying, I don't think Wilfried ever really wanted to become Archduke, and according to him, literally nobody but Sylvester wanted it either. The enther duchy, other than the Veronica faction, are like, yeah, no, Myne, infinitely more qualified. She's friends with royals. She has an insane amount of mana. She comes first in her class every single year. Clearly, she is way more suited to become Archduke than Wilfried is. But now Wilfried can choose for himself. He can choose his own life. And honestly, I would so love if there's a scene, like a flash forward at some point, like 10 years in the future. Charlotte just became Archduke and Wilfried becomes Knight Commander, Gabe, whatever. And he goes to Veronica, he goes to his grandma and tells her, hey, listen up. This is the life I lived and I am happy with it. I don't want to become Archduke. I never really wanted to become Archduke in the first place. Here I have a role I can do that can help the duchy, and I am proud of it. I think it would be an absolutely amazing scene and great closure for him as a character. And the scene ends with this absolutely fantastic line, being engaged to you is painful, but I still love you as a sister. And that was something that I honestly wasn't sure about. I mean, just given how much his people were edging him up, telling him, oh, Myne's out to get you, Myne's out to get you, I was really starting to wonder, like, oh, okay, does he hate Myne? Is he, like, fearful of her? What is his opinion of her? But no, Wilfried still very much cares about his sister and wants to protect her as best he can. And we even saw later on in this volume that they are still able to work together, even if they aren't really on the same page. As when the Justking faction came and basically attacked Florentia, who was heavily pregnant at this time, Wilfried and Myne managed to, basically defeat them. We were able to outsmart them, even though Myne spent the entire scene like, no, Wilfried, you can't read the room. Don't say that. What's wrong with you? That being said, though, Myne wasn't much better, as when Wilfried said, why don't you just join the temple yourself? Myne is like, oh, Wilfried, that's a great idea. They should do that. And she really thought they would. She really thought that she could convince some old, retired, highly respected nobles to join the goddamn temple for the good of their province. Oh, I love it. I absolutely freaking love it. Seriously, Myne. No, you don't understand nobles at all. I mean, neither does Wilfried, so I think you two, actually, running the duchy together probably would have been very bad. I mean, you can work together sometimes, but I think on a day-to-day basis, that would just cause no end of headaches for literally everyone who's working for you and the duchy as a whole. Anyway, though, big issue right now with Wilfried is good old Bartold, his name-sworn retainer, who has basically taken control over all his other retainers. And that's something that even Myne noticed. She realized, hey, wait a second, this dude is the front of the pack. Why is he leading everyone else? And, not a good sign when Myne notices something like that. It means it is really freaking obvious. And what's worse, this dude is actually now just trying to antagonize Wilfried. Those impossible jobs that were given to him by the Justking faction, yeah, they were given to him actually by Bartold, who lied and said they were from the Justking faction. And this whole, battle that happened between Florentia and the Justkings, that was also his doing. He riled them up. He gave them the info so they would come in and attack Florentia, verbally, I mean, and then she would, basically arrest them. So, yeah, concerning, very, very concerning, especially because Florentia decides, you know what, this is a good lesson for Wilfried. I'm just gonna let him figure this out on his own. Girl, what the freak is wrong with you? Seriously, I was impressed when you came up with this whole plan to outsmart the Justking faction, but still, this seems dangerous. This seems really freaking dangerous. Though that being said, I do think it might actually work. I mean, don't be wrong, Wilfried is as dense as a bag of rocks, but at the same time, I feel like the stage is set pretty well right now. This whole plan to, basically defeat the Justking faction and weaken them fully backfired, and instead the Justking faction is now way more loyal to Sylvester, which is very much not what Bartold wanted. Also, now that Wilfried isn't actually trying to become the Archduke, if he says, oh, the Justking faction told you to do this, Wilfried can just say, yeah, they can go suck a lemon, I don't care, I'm not doing that, which takes a very big gun out of his arsenal. And finally, now that he's not competing with Myne to become the next Archduke, if this dude starts pulling up like, hey, Myne's trying to steal your accomplishments, Myne's trying to do this, Myne's trying to do this, I think Wilfried might realize, okay, wait a second. I kind of understood where this guy was coming from when I was actually, afraid of Myne taking the spot from me, but now that I'm not, he's just, bad-mouthing my sister. like 24/7, and I don't like that. I really don't like that. So I have some hope that Wilfried will figure out everything on his own eventually, hopefully before he decides on a career path. Like, seriously, if he becomes a Gabe and this dude is still in his repertoire, still a member of his retainers, that's bad. That is very, very bad. At that point, Florentia seriously needs to step in. Though I also do still have hope, because at 2 different points this volume, Wilfried was basically given a reminder, a lesson about Veronica. The first one was from, Gabe Leisgang, who encouraged him to consider exactly why the Leisgang faction hated Veronica so much, what she had done to them. And this is something that Wilfried understands but doesn't actually understand. Like, he knows on a logical level, oh yeah, Veronica did this, 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 but he doesn't really understand, oh no, she really made these people's lives a living hell, so I get why they hate her, and I get why they hate me, as a result of that. And then later on, when he was talking to Charlotte's like, yeah, Wilfried, good old grandma, the grandma you love, the grandma that showered you with presents, she never once gave me anything in my entire goddamn life. And Wilfried is utterly shocked by this, utterly shocked by the fact that his grandmother's love was so conditional, that she could, shower him, but fully ignore his sister. So, yeah, I think at this point Wilfried is starting to put the pieces together and realizing, okay, maybe Grandma wasn't a good person. And in fact, there's a fan book which literally says that if Wilfried had failed at the academy, if he'd failed his debut, whatever, Veronica would have turned on him at the drop of a hat. So yeah, a very, very awful human being. And we saw that perfectly illustrated when we got Elvira's life story. And when we have gotten bits and pieces of her story before, seeing it actually all laid out like this was utterly heartbreaking. Seriously, I think I've cried 4 times throughout this entire series. Ferdinand's departure, Myne leaving her family, and the other 2 were in this volume. Seriously, Elvira's story and just how it ended had me bawling. God above. Okay, so let's just give a quick rundown. Elvira was forced to marry Karstad to appease the Leisgang faction because Veronica was too powerful. She was stuck in a loveless marriage, couldn't do anything, watched her eldest son have his, wife killed by Veronica, probably, who then tried to convince him to serve as Wilfried's guard, and then when he refused because he was still mourning the death of his wife, she used that as an excuse to say he was committing treason. Also important to mention, Eckhart didn't actually refuse the order himself. Rather, the entire rest of the family refused the order because they realized, he's gonna murder her. He is 100% going to murder Veronica if we let her anywhere near him. In fact, the authors even said, she made a post on Twitter a long time ago, literally saying Eckhart would have murdered her and the entire duchy would have gone down in flames. Anyway, though, because Eckhart couldn't serve as Wilfried's guard knight, Lamprecht took up the role and realized very quickly, oh yeah, Wilfried, utterly and completely incompetent. And when Elvira tried to, warn Karstad, warn Sylvester, they're like, oh, we know you don't like Veronica, so clearly you're just making all this up. You're exaggerating. They didn't listen to her. And in fact, Karstad has apparently never listened to her in their entire marriage. Seriously, I like this dude. I liked this dude before this volume, but after this, he's really dropped down a couple notches. Anyway, though, so then Lamprecht was forced to serve an incompetent master, and Eckhart was super depressed because his wife was dead and his master was stuck in the temple. So Cornelius saw all this and he's like, yeah, I'm just going to fully stop trying, entirely. At which point, Elvira's like, okay, all of my kids, they are just so depressed. They have no future. Veronica is trying to convince, Karstad to make his second wife's son the actual heir to the family. My duchy is suffering, my province is suffering, my hometown is suffering because of Veronica. My life is just complete and absolute hell. And then Myne showed up. And just, on the tendon of, oh, because of Myne, Veronica is in jail, Elvira was fully willing to accept her as her daughter, even knowing she was a commoner. Seriously, Elvira knew that Myne was a commoner. And in fact, so did Hartmut. And the way he dropped that information was just so amazing. Fear not, I have long since known that you are a commoner, that Gunther is your father, and that you've known Benno since before your baptism. God above, seriously. So, yeah, a lot of people actually know that Myne's a commoner, though apparently not Florentia, which does, yeah, this first prologue to this volume did confirm my long-term theory. Basically, a few volumes back, she said to Charlotte that Myne visits her family in the temple, which is something that Sylvester slipped to her, except Sylvester was talking about her commoner family, and Florentia thought she was talking about her noble family, aka Elvira. So that means that Myne has officially gotten, like, no training on how to be a proper noble woman. Essentially, she hasn't had the talk yet, because Florentia and Elvira both thought the other person gave it to her. So, yeah, that feels like it's going to be very, very problematic down the road. But anyway, moving back on to Elvira. So she decided to invite Myne in because, yeah, Myne just did so much for her. Awesome. And it was the best decision of her entire freaking life because everything turned around after that point. Ferdinand rejoined noble society, which made Eckhart very happy. Myne saved Wilfried from being disinherited, which made Lambert very happy. She encouraged Cornelius to start studying again, and after she fell into the coma, he became a straight A student. Because, she had to talk to Carson a lot about Myne, their relationship and their marriage got a lot better. She started taking up writing again, so she has a passion, and her home province got a whole bunch of mana and the ritual, which made them way more profitable and happy and successful. Literally every aspect of her life improved dramatically tenfold because of Myne, because of Myne's presence, and because she decided to take in Myne as her one true daughter. So, holy mother of God above, seriously. And just all of this, it was just so fantastic. And it just ended with this line that this is the part where I actually started crying. My daughter is being adopted by the king, and one of my sons has been handpicked to serve as her royal retainer. Once we leave this room, I will not be allowed to show anything but pride for these accomplishments. So permit me for this brief moment to grieve over my two children moving so far away. God freaking Christ above, Elvira. That line, the way you delivered it was so absolutely perfect. Like, seriously, we had, like, pretty much the same conversation with Lutz and his mother in the epilogue of this volume, and I felt almost nothing. But here with Elvira, I was bawling my god dang eyes out. Best mom, seriously, best mom in the series. And everyone's like, oh, what about Myne's commoner mother? What about Effa? No, Elvira's better. I'm sorry to say, Elvira is best freaking mom. God, I love her. And Elvira really showed her motherly nature too when it came to Myne's retainers, when it came to deciding who she'd be able to bring with her to sovereignty. Because I just basically assumed, like, oh, these are Myne's people. They're loyal to her. Of course they're coming with her. But everybody has their own circumstances. I mean, even Angelica's like, Myne, what should I do? Myne's like, I want you to come with me. And Angelica's like, awesome, I will do that. Like, seriously, girl. Literally nobody else in the entire world would hire you to be their guard knight, and now you're debating whether or not to go with her? God, I love Angelica. Absolutely love her. Meanwhile, her sister, Liseletta, is in a much trickier situation because she is engaged to a complete and absolute jerk. And, she's going to be the next head of her household. So that's, not something she can easily walk away from. And originally she assumes, like, okay, you know what? That's it. I'm just going to have to stay behind. I'm sorry. This is it. Goodbye, Myne. But then she goes talk to Elvira, and actually I love this. Like, the main volume says stuff like, oh, Myne needs to ask Liseletta to stay. Myne needs to make that decision for herself. But no, the entire thing has already been set up ahead of time. And they're basically just using this as a lesson to show that Myne needs to learn to ask for what she wants. And the way she asks, holy mother of God above, I will do my best to protect you, to ensure that no ill falls you, to make sure that you are not overworked, and I will raise your pay and allow you to keep a variable nest of schumels in your room. Love it. Absolutely freaking love it. Especially because Elvira already promised her a promotion. Promised her that she will now become Myne's head attendant. An insanely honorable role for a med noble. And even her father's like, oh, this is too much. This is way too much for our family. Honestly, I think he's kind of glad to be, rid of Lysoletta. Not in an awful way. More like, yeah, this girl has gone beyond us. She is well beyond the confines, the limitations, the common sense understanding of our family. So it's probably best that we just pick, literally anybody else to run this clan. Love it. Also, just quick tangent. What the freak is with her fiance? Seriously, Thorsten? His family has been arrested for being criminals who did things for Veronica, and yet he's still allowed to work for Wilfried? I mean, I know they're trying to eliminate the whole, you can't be arrested for the crimes of your relatives thing, but I feel at the very least they might want to just, interrogate this dude, because he clearly has some very negative opinions about Myne, and I'm not really happy about that. But anyway, though, moving on to the rest of Myne's retainers, we have Leonora and Cornelius, and since they're engaged, that's a bit of an issue, because, where they have the marriage here, or sovereignty, what's going on with that? And, Karstead basically forbids Cornelius from leaving, saying essentially, dude, you are literally the best knight we have left. Don't leave, because if you do, we're going to get trounced by the Lord of Winter. And Elvira steps in with big mom energy, basically saying, Cornelius, I did not raise you to abandon your little sister in her time of need. You are going to sovereignty, and that is final. Best mom. Again, best freaking mom in this series. Love her. That basically just leaves Judith, who's going to have to stay behind because her family will in no way approve of her moving to sovereignty. Poor Judith. And there's also, Hartmut, who, of course, he's coming, obviously. And even System becoming name-sworn so that he can be more loyal to her. And the crazy thing is, his mother actually said, yeah, seriously, Myne, just take his name because that way he's easier to control. Love it. Of course, Clarissa also gives her name because of freaking course she does. And that just leaves, Damuel and, first the name-sworn. Love the name sworn here because Myne, again, great line. So many great lines this volume, seriously. From the moment I accept your names, my intention has been to look after you for the rest of your lives. You trusted yourselves to me, and I will not cast you aside. God dang, Myne is so freaking loyal. I love her. I absolutely love her. Anyway, okay, now finally, Feline and Damuel, who are in a weird situation because, there aren't a lot of lay nobles in sovereignty, so Elvira's straight up yeah, maybe don't bring them with you, or at least leave them behind until you come of age and have more power, authority, all of that. And Damuel, just God above Damuel, his reasoning for not wanting to come with Myne to sovereignty is quite literally, listen, Myne, I'm a lay noble, and you are a Zent candidate. There's no clear, logical reason why I'd be in your retainer unless I'm sleeping with you. So unless you want them to think I'm your sex slave, I gotta stay behind until I'm married. My man Damuel, that is an absolutely insane line to drop. And he just gets crazier this volume as he straight up proposes to Feline as a way to protect her, fully unaware of her feelings. And I do find it funny that Myne had to drop the ball on him and basically explain, yeah, no, Feline literally, genuinely wants to marry you. And I'm a little bothered by how excited he is by that, considering he's known her since, she was a little girl. But either way, its bigger concern right now is the fact that Feline is taking lessons from Clarissa on how to propose to a man. And, she proposed to Hartmut by literally holding a knife to his neck and forcing herself upon him. So, yeah, that's going to be a scene. That is definitely going to be a scene at some point in this series. God, I love Feline. Anyway, though, she decides to stay behind to look after her brother Conrad for a little bit, who has decided to become a blue priest with the spirit of a cutthroat merchant because Myne inspired him so much. Love it. Anyway, though, she's the temporary orphanage director, so good for her. And speaking of Conrad and the orphanage, we also have Dirk, who has decided to become a noble. Dirk, who we met in part 2 as a commoner infant, has decided to become a noble for the sake of the orphanage, for the sake of Delia, for the sake of ensuring that the things Myne cares for continue unabated. Holy mother of God above. Seriously, even the author said in the afterword that writing this scene was like writing about your own child growing up. And for the record, this was the scene. This was the other scene in this volume that made me cry. As, he turned to Delia, who was in tears, like begging him not to do this, begging him not to go, and just said, he was doing this for her, doing this to protect her. I mean, that is such a callback to part 3, to part 2, where Myne has to separate from her family. Except now Myne is in the situation of Ferdinand, and it's really interesting because, back then, shortly before then, Delia said this whole thing like, oh, I guess Ferdinand just like separating people from their families, referring to Myne being separated from her family and Dirk being separated from her. And, he didn't, and now Myne is in the same place as him. She doesn't want to see Dirk separated from Delia, but there is nothing she can do, and deep down it's also kind of her fault as well, which, seriously, I mean, back then in part 2, it was kind of Ferdinand's fault because his retainer, Arno, didn't alert him about what was going on, and now it's Myne's fault because, she was the one that punished Delia. Yes, it was to save her life, but if she had given a different wording, like you have to stay in the orphanage till you're 60, or you have to do this, or you have to do this, then it's possible that she wouldn't be forced to separate from her brother, forced to separate from her only family, but she is. Holy mother of God above, that is sad. That is so overwhelmingly sad. And like I said, I cried here, absolutely love the scene. It was fantastic. It was utterly, utterly fantastic. Anyway, though, a few things I want to mention. First off, I love the scene of Myne working with Hartman and Clarissa to make the maximum quality Fae paper. That was so cool. Though I was very bothered by the fact that Myne is just so absolutely and completely disinterested in research. I mean, seriously, I get it. I'm writing my PhD dissertation right now. It is not fun at all. And back when I got my master's in computer science, I developed this like deep Q learning algorithm thing for my final project. Basically, I was trying to solve a maze. And every time I changed a variable, just a little bit, the results were wildly different, and the testing it took somewhere between a few seconds to a couple of hours, so it was a solid 2 months of trial and error over and over and over again, until I almost went insane. Like, seriously, that's a story for another day. Anyway, though, Myne here, though, she makes improvements to the paper like 3 separate times over the course of a day, and she is bored out of her mind. Like, seriously, girl, you are rushing through research at a breakneck speed. What the freak is wrong with you? Anyway, though, I love that the quality paper is so insanely good that even Ferdinand is like, what the freak? Seriously, what the freak is going on here? How did she make it this good? And he has to like rush, be like, okay, I gotta give her presents. I gotta give her presents in return because she spent so much money on this and I didn't mean for her to do it. And Ferdinand is such a tsundere in this scene. Like, he clearly loves the paper, he's clearly impressed by its quality, but he's like, oh, it's wastefully inefficient. And when it comes to having his own private room, his own hidden room, he's like, oh, this fully ruined my plan. And it very much ruined his plans because Georgine only approved the hidden room when it was convenient for her. But at the same time, Sylvester's like, oh yeah, he loved the hidden room. He was over the moon about it. In fact, he fully stopped sleeping at night and spent all of his time in the hidden room. So yeah, Ferdinand, he complains, he moans, he bellyaches, but at the same time, he is so absolutely ecstatic about everything Myne has done for him, and he wants to repay her for it, and even finds a way to improve the recipe for the paper so it isn't so wastefully inefficient. Love it. Absolutely love it. And speaking of Ferdinand, there's something I need to call out because again and again and again this volume, it is implied that Myne's place is with Ferdinand. When Wilfried wanted to break off the engagement, a big reason he listed was because Ferdinand would always be more important to her than he was. Florentia said, Myne was most comfortable in the temple. Elvira said, I was going to make you a hidden room here. I was going to be a mother for you more than I was. But I realized very quickly, no, your place was with Ferdinand. That was where you were most comfortable. When Myne got back from the Archduke conference, everything was said and done, she went to bed holding the Ferdinand Schummel, the one that constantly insults her over and over again, and she basically snuggled with Ferdinand as he just kept insulting her until she fell asleep. That is something right there. And when Myne was reading Ferdinand's letter, when she was reading the line, "What is your Geduld?" the first thing that popped into her mind was Ferdinand's face. And as you could say, oh, well, she was remembering the line he said a while back, like, oh, do you want to become queen, blah, blah, blah. But no, she went out of her way to describe every feature of his face as she was imagining it. So, yeah, I am not saying that Myne is like madly, hopelessly in love with Ferdinand, but she clearly cares for him a great deal, and this volume is really emphasizing that her place is with him. So that feels, relevant, especially given that Detland is fully having an affair. Seriously, Detland, I mean, she sucks. She absolutely sucks. Absolutely certain about the fact that, oh, once I become Zent, once I become ruler of this entire country, instead of just this one duchy, I'll have much less work to do. Clearly, the Zent doesn't do anything all day except sit around lounging, having a martini. God, this girl is dumb. Though, honestly, I can't be too mad at her for anything this volume, considering the fact that, she straight up says, oh yes, becoming Zent is the first dream, the first goal I've ever had that my mother has supported, the first time that she's actually approved of me in any way at all. I mean, she quite literally says, when I am Zent, maybe then mother would give me the attention I needed. She's trying to become Zent largely to get her mother's love, and that is just so absolutely tragic and sad. And then she has Ferdinand, the man who apparently, as far as she knows, actually is in love with her, who she realizes this volume, oh no, he is in fact a very cruel and heartless man. So she turns to Leonzio, the prince from a foreign country, who is direct, doesn't rely on noble euphemisms, and just says, hey, girl, you are cute. Though I also do have to wonder if Leonzo is drugging her, because she mentioned like this sweet smell emanating from his body when she went in close to him. That could be the smell of Trug, so curious about that. I mean, if so, that does raise some questions, because I'm pretty sure Georgine is also using Trug. It seemed like she was using it on the nights, or maybe she was just using... Yeah, no, it was implied the other volume that she gave Rowblet the flower that was Trug, so she's kind of, responsible. She's intertwined with these people, but she clearly doesn't want Detland to be as in love with Leonzio as she is, as for the very first time in this entire series, she actually chastised her daughter and had to go to his villa to drag him out and basically just tell her, girl, it is so obvious that you are having an affair. Please stop it. Please freaking stop it. Seriously, I want a side story of that scene. I want a scene of Georgine actually needing to step up and be a mother for the first time in her entire freaking life. That would be funny. That would absolutely be hilarious. Alright, and those are my thoughts on this volume. Like I said, seems very likely that Ferdinand and Detland aren't going to work out, and that Ferdinand in some way, shape, or form is going to end up with Myne somehow. Not entirely sure. The age thing is a bit weird, but again, I'm pretty sure... Wait, how old is Daniel and Feline? That's also a very significant age gap right there, and he's also known her since she was a child, so... I don't know, I guess by noble standards that isn't too weird, even though Ferdinand is technically her uncle. But actually, that's right, in noble society, you can even marry a sibling so long as you don't share a mother, so I guess that's cool, somehow, some way. So what do you think? Ferdinand gonna become the next Zent, take over the country? Because, yeah, seriously, royal family, I'm just kind of done with all of you. I mean, okay, I actually still like Hildebrand, but he's being controlled by Rowblet. Anastasius and Eglantine just kind of really... I mean, Anastasius I'm still okay with, but Eglantine is just kind of too cold to mind for me to really trust her. And of course, Siggy is an absolute and complete moron, and the king himself is just so tired, and so am I. So let me know what you think about all this down below, and until next time, peace!